Have you ever felt the sharp, stinging pain of betrayal? Not just from a friend or a stranger, but from someone who shares your own blood, your own name? What happens when the very people who are supposed to protect you become the source of your deepest wound, leaving you to wonder where God is in the middle of such devastating heartbreak? It's the raw, unfiltered reality of a story that began thousands of years ago. It's the story of a young man named Joseph, whose life was torn apart by the ones he called brothers. Genesis 37 opens not with a bang, but with a quiet, simmering tension. It introduces us to Jacob and his 12 sons, a household brimming with life, but also with unspoken rivalries and deep-seated jealousies. A family just like any other, full of potential for both great love and great brokenness. One son, Joseph, was set apart, the favored one, the son of Jacob's old age, born to his beloved wife, Rachel. That favor acted like a tiny spark in a room of dry kindling, waiting to ignite a fire of resentment. It all started with a gift. A beautiful, ornate, and incredibly special gift. Genesis 37 verse 3 tells us, "Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him." This wasn't just any old tunic. The Hebrew suggests a robe with long sleeves, perhaps richly embroidered, a garment of royalty and distinction. In a family of shepherds who wore practical, simple clothing, this coat was a declaration. As if the coat wasn't enough to stoke the flames of their fury, Joseph then added fuel to the fire with his dreams. These weren't just any ordinary dreams. These were divine revelations, glimpses into a future orchestrated by God himself. In the first dream, Joseph saw himself and his brothers binding sheaves of grain in a field. Suddenly his sheaf stood upright, and his brothers' sheaves gathered around it and bowed down. A teenager sharing a dream like that with his already resentful older brothers. You can just imagine how well that went over. It was like pouring salt into an open wound. The simmering hatred finally reached its boiling point out in the desolate fields of Dothan. Jacob, unaware of the depth of his son's animosity, sent Joseph to check on them as they were grazing their flocks. He sent his beloved son wearing that infamous coat straight into the lion's den. When the brothers saw him coming from a distance, the conspiracy that had been brewing in their hearts erupted into a full-blown plot. "Here comes that dreamer," they sneered. While Joseph sat alone in the darkness of the pit, his brothers sat down to eat a meal. The sheer coldness of their actions is chilling. But God's plan was already in motion, unfolding in a way that no one could have predicted. As they were eating, Judah looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelite traders on their way to Egypt. So they pulled Joseph up out of the pit, only to sell him into a life of slavery. For 20 shekels of silver, the price of a slave, they handed their brother over to strangers, severing him from his family, his home, and everything he had ever known. The conspiracy of silence and deception continued as the brothers returned home. They slaughtered a goat and dipped the robe into its blood, staining the symbol of their father's love with the evidence of a lie. They brought the blood-soaked garment to Jacob. Jacob recognized it at once. "It is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces. The pain that ripped through this old man's heart is palpable. He tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, entered deep mourning. His grief could not be comforted." So what are we to do with a story this heavy, this filled with pain and brokenness? We are to look for God in it, because he is there. The central message of Genesis 37 is not simply about betrayal, but about the unwavering providence of a God who is always working behind the scenes. The key is to trust him, especially when the circumstances of our lives seem to scream that he has forgotten us. Joseph's suffering was not pointless. It was purposeful. It was the necessary, though painful, path to his promotion and to the salvation of his people. The story of Joseph challenges us to re-examine our own pits. What are the situations in your life that feel like a dead end? Where have you been betrayed, misunderstood, or cast aside? It's in those very places that God wants to do his deepest work. He wants to teach us that our value is not determined by a code of favoritism, nor can it be stripped away by the jealousy of others. Our value is found in him, and our purpose is not thwarted by human evil. It is often fulfilled right through it. As Joseph himself would later say to his brothers, You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. This chapter is an invitation to deal with the jealousy and rivalry in our own hearts. It calls us to look at the ways we compare ourselves to others, the bitterness we might harbor when someone else receives a blessing we wanted for ourselves. Let us learn from their mistakes and choose a different path, a path of love, forgiveness, and trust in God's unique plan for each of us. I want to encourage you today, friend. Whatever pit you may find yourself in, you are not alone. God has not forgotten you. Your story is not over. The journey may be long and painful, but God is weaving it all into a beautiful tapestry of redemption. I invite you to go read Genesis 37 for yourself. Let the story wash over you. Ask God to show you where you are in this narrative and what He wants to teach you through it. Thank you for walking through this powerful chapter with me. Trust that the God who was with Joseph in the pit is the same God who is with you right now, turning what was meant for your harm into something for your good and for His ultimate glory.